Get them fired up and get them to the staging lanes, baby, because 8th Mile Apparel is now carrying Going Bracket Racing merch. Hats, t-shirts, hoodies, and much more can be yours today by visiting 8thmileapparel.com. We appreciate each and every one of you guys supporting the Going Bracket Racing YouTube and Facebook pages.
Casey and George are back. GBR Live, April 2nd, episode 149. We're getting up there, George. It's been a while, but we always got to thank those people that have kept this show free for all these, 4 or 5 years we've been doing this now. TSR Racing Products, call them up. Power Glides, Turbo 350s, 400, 727 transmission parts, full transmissions, whatever you do, TSR has you handled. BRG 3D printed parts, anything you need, Brian Garrett will print it up for you. Anything you need to mock up your race car, he can get it done over there. Just give him the dimensions and he'll get it figured out with the newest, latest, and greatest CAD software. Syntex Printing out there in Temple, Texas for your hats, t-shirts, stickers, brochures, etc. Driven Racing Oil, use the code GBR10. As Champ likes to say, they don't just sell oil, George. They sell all kinds of petroleum products. But you can get 10% off all of them with the code GBR10. Y'all are welcome. Don't forget to use that whenever you make your orders out there at drivenracingoil.com. Proform Parts, visit proformparts.com, especially for those garage tools, but also you can get carburetors, alternators, starters, radiators, distributors, and much, much more. Anything you need for your shop, get it over there at proformparts.com. Crew Chief Pro Software, if you're out there in Vegas, I bet you're wishing you had it right now because the DA supposedly is around 2,500 right now. Could be 6,000 tomorrow. You never know what's going on. And of course, if you want to help support Casey and George over here at GBR, visit 8thmileapparel.com and get yourself some GBR merch. Got hats, t-shirts, hoodies, all that stuff that Champ said in that little deal probably played before we started talking. George, what's going on, man? A little cold at your house, you said.
Might have warmed up a little bit. I know I went out there earlier today and needed to move around a few things. Been working underneath the car quite a bit. Special shout out TSR. Casey's right. They'll take care of you. I needed a new input shaft and they got it to me really, really quick there. Definitely helped me button up the converter change that I just made. So special shout out to them getting it here. But I'm underneath the car trying to work on the diaper. It's getting a little too close for comfort on that flex plate. So I think I had better better tighten it up or get it away from there a little bit. And it was a little cold out there, so that was my reference. I haven't been outside since, so I can't tell you if it's warm anymore or not. So, but good day so far, man. I ain't got nothing to complain about. Hopefully the weekend turns out to be somewhat the same. What about you?
I'll tell you what, I'm planning on going racing this weekend. Haven't been able to go for the last couple of weeks for various reasons. Yesterday, I was moving mulch with the tractor about as soon as I got off work, moving it all around. We got to do it about this time of year. But I about screwed up, actually, a little bit earlier because my office is up here in the top part of the garage, and it was hot today. It's like upper 80s today out of nowhere. It's supposed to be down in the 60s again, I think, tomorrow because it's going to rain and cool it all off. But I didn't turn on the AC yet this year, man. And I looked over right before we started the show, and I was like, oh, it's 84 up here right now. So this wasn't going to be a fun hour because it doesn't cool off this time of day in North Carolina, man. But I got that AC cranked on right now. So it's down to roughly, I don't know, maybe 80 degrees, 79 degrees, something like that.
What are you trying to say,
Go
Casey?
ahead.
You wasn't trying to have an episode of GBR doing some hot yoga in your office?
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm not one to do that. I can assure you of that.
That's
But
probably a good thing,
it,
because we don't want to see all that, Casey. See
no,
all
nobody
that,
does.
man.
Nobody does. Man, it's another great week of racing though, man. The spring fling's going on right now. They're getting ready to race for about a $60,000 dragster tonight. All carbon American roller. Looks extremely nice in pictures. Let's see if Corey Galletti takes it home again. It's either going to be him or Gary Williams. It seems like it's one of those guys. They always need a new car, so enter a dragster race so that way we can get something new, huh?
They got it. Well, you're right, man. And we know all those guys are out there too. So don't be shocked if you see OCG in the final of that race, likely next to Gary Williams, just like you said there. It's just been I guess that's been the final chapter of the dragster race quite a few times. It's not that hard to make a prediction that one of the two of those drivers or the both of them would be in the final of that race. So pretty cool, man. I haven't got to watch a lot of it, but I've seen just a little bit. Special shout out to Bang Shift. You guys doing a good job. I do believe Bang Shift is presenting. I know it's live directly to Spring Fling, however. And that's pretty neat to see over 700 people on there. Whenever I was watching, I have to imagine there's probably over 1,000 now, as that was maybe 4 or 5 hours ago when I chimed in, maybe around 1 o'clock Central, so or 12 o'clock Eastern, whatever time it was I got on there. Something like that. I always get those two backwards, but definitely looks like it's going to be a heck of an event, Casey.
I'm interested to see what they do. Peter's been talking about they're doing pit reports and things like that, which is going to be awesome. I've thought bracket racing has been lacking that for a long time. He said doing this was going to give him a lot more control over how he presents the. He's going to make it more of a show, and you and I have talked about this. Obviously, GBR Media has been streaming some races, several races now, and we've been talking about the possibility of doing things like that with the streams that you're doing. And I just think that there's so many personalities out there. That'd be great for somebody to take that on, given the opportunity just to see, because there's so many walks of life in the pits at a bracket race.
Yeah, and I'd definitely like to see the behind the scenes, what all's happening in the pits, maybe run up on somebody who's actually going through a thrash, and let everybody see, especially people who watch this show who are not actually bracket racers, but let everybody see the type of family that we actually have over here. You see one man thrashing, and next thing you know, there's 20 people thrashing on one car that doesn't even belong to them. You know what I mean? Shout out to Aaron Jones, by the way. Come over and help me thrash on my machine. You know what I mean? Just met him through Eric Sandlin. Hadn't known him very long, but he's over at the house, and we're underneath there just having a good time laughing, watching me make a few mistakes, like not putting a 1/2 inch wrench behind that bolt that I needed to take off. I'm sitting there spinning it for 20 minutes, trying to figure out what some gun didn't come off. But I told him I was just going to tell everybody. I told him not to tell anyone, though, but it's a funny story. So he's going to tell somebody eventually. I figured I'd just get it out there for myself. That, yeah, I did it. All right. Boneheaded moment, dude. Boneheaded moment. But that's just how bracket racing is, and we don't see that enough. You know what I mean? So definitely would be good to show others that.
And it leads us into, I guess, the first subject of this show, man, which I've seen already. It's come up in the chat already. Big money bracket racing never fails to disappoint. It's whenever there's a lot of money involved, it seems like something crazy always happens, man. And I must say that this is kind of one of the craziest decisions that I've ever seen happen at any race. But I was watching the race last weekend because it was at Rockingham. I couldn't be there personally, but obviously being at Rockingham, it's 2 hours from my house. Tons of my friends were there. Like pretty much everybody I race every single weekend with. The vast majority of the people in attendance at Rockingham were people I raced with every single weekend. So I wanted to see what was going on, what everybody was doing. So I was pretty locked into Motor Mania. And 6th round comes around, and Kyle Cotrera has a buy round and does this big long burnout, car breaks. Everybody's kind of like, whoa, this is wild. Car won't fire up. It seems like he might have cranked it for a while, or maybe he didn't crank it. I couldn't really tell what was going on. Long story short, car had to be pushed off. And car gets pushed off, and all of a sudden, Kyle Cotrera comes back around with a loaner dragster, does a burnout again, and proceeds to make a buy run, the same buy run that he broke on in the 6th round of a $50,000 to win race. So that being said, I just wonder, like, what was the thought process as far as whoever was involved with making this call? Because this is something that, I mean, in any race, this isn't a big money race thing. This has been like the rules for, probably 50 years. And I went and checked all the rule books of all of the organizations right now. I checked NHRA, I checked IHRA, I checked WDRA. They all basically say the same thing, but I'm just going to read the rules straight out of the NHRA rule book because Rockingham is an NHRA sanctioned facility. So that's the one that applies here. And the rule is staging. Once a vehicle reaches the front of the staging lanes for a run, it must be prepared to fire in race. To be a legitimate race winner, a contestant's vehicle must self-start and stage. This rule also applies to single runs. Push starting or push staging any vehicle is prohibited. Now, that being said, as far as interpreting the rules and how I read this, you have to stage and take the tree, which is a very common practice, especially at big money races. We had a very long conversation at, I don't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago, the OG Million that raced Tarleton was on the buy run for all those rounds. And we were talking about, do you take the full buy run? Do you stage it and go back to the pits? What do you do? Everybody can go back and watch that video to see what we were talking about as far as that goes and our opinions of that. But the fact of the matter is, it has always been a rule that you must stage and take the tree to be able to advance to the following round. And in fact, I believe at Snowbirds this year, Bubba Stanton was in Scotty Cannon's Pro Mod car, and they must have had a real clutch in it or something, because the car wouldn't start and they were trying to bump it in with the starter, because with a manual clutch, you can kind of slip the clutch and bump the starter and it'll creep the car forward. And they were thrown out of the round, and they didn't even have anybody in the other lane. The guy didn't even show up to the statements. So all of that being said, what is the, in your opinion, call that should have been made for this round, just based off of the rule book, not based off of, we'll get into later what could possibly have been changed here or stretched or whatever, but based on the rule book, what is the decision that should have been made?
Sure. First, let me first start by making sure everybody understands the magnifying glass or the microscope or the set of eyes that is on a race of this magnitude, or any big money race for that matter. They're on the Spring Fling Vegas right now as well. You know what I mean? So if you looked at the YouTube thumbnail and it looks like a replay center, and Who Makes the Rules might be the name of this. It's almost like we might need a Secaucus. That's who NBA calls whenever there's an issue on the court and they want to figure out which way to go. And so that's kind of why I put it up there. I was kind of being, it was just a joke, right? But the rule has to be enforced exactly how it's written, in my opinion. But I'm not going to sit here and say that Kyle Riley didn't come out and say that it should have been done differently, because I saw it with my own eyes. He said, I made a pretty bad mistake there. The rule definitely didn't work the way it should have worked. But in no way, shape, or form is this the first time I've ever seen this as well. I've seen it multiple times. This isn't the first time that I've remember seeing this. Definitely have to be a little bit more strong. And if you remember, a couple of weeks back, we talked about a universal rule book, even into the big money scene. Because let's be honest, NHRA may sanction that track, but NHRA does not set the rules for what's happening at that event. That's going to be on the promoter, and the promoter has a rule that he or she generally follows. And in this particular case, I'm not for sure of what may have distracted from making the right decision. But I do enjoy the fact that, or should I say, I respect the fact that the promoter came out and said that was not the right call. And I definitely would say, Casey, he's disqualified. You back it off. You didn't stage under power. Um, you're basically out, you know. But with every form of criticism, I would love to figure out how we resolve this problem going forward. What can we implement as a rule? I was talking to my dad on the phone, and I mentioned to him, well, maybe we should take out the fact that you need to bring the car to the staging lanes. Anyway, it's a buy run, okay? Yes, my car's broke, but I'm not going to tell you my car's broke if I'm on the buy run. And I'll come to the lane and do whatever I can, or I'll try to fix it and stage up for the next. Maybe. What are your thoughts on that? Is there a little bit of a gray area that needs to be made a little bit more clear in this whole situation in the first place? Because we understand the rule as what it is, but there's a lot of gray area in this rule too. I think I remember seeing one time somebody may have been doubled and broke in the burnout box and lost his first entry and still had a buy run. Well, then he still got a, you know, this has happened before.
Right. And Barn actually posted the SFG rule, which needs to be read next because, as you said, this isn't NHRA's race. NHRA sanctions the track, but SFG rented the track. Therefore, it's SFG's race, in my opinion. SFG's rule is, and I have it written over here, so I'm just going to read it off my side screen. Broke car changes. Driver may change vehicles due to breakage while in competition with approval from the race director. Once that vehicle has entered the staging lanes for the round, a broke car change is not permitted in that round for that entry. Once in the staging lanes, that vehicle must be used for that entry. Once a vehicle is considered broken, it can no longer be used in competition for that race. Now, this leads us to the problem, in my opinion. And the problem is not the fact that Kyle Cotrera won that round. And I don't put any blame on Kyle Cotrera because at least in the next, I don't know if he races for a living per se, but he certainly could have in the last couple of years. Kyle's just doing, and this is incredibly confusing because the two people we're talking about are named Kyle, but so I'll just say Cotrera is just trying to, he's doing what he's allowed. I think most people, if they're going to be allowed to essentially take a time shot before second round in the car they haven't driven that day, then whatever, they're going to do it. Most people, you know, so he's not doing anything wrong here. The fact of the matter is he broke in this burnout and now all of a sudden he's coming back and repeating the buy run that he already broke in that has already been completed. Because the way I think about all this is, it's clearly, we just read the NHRA rule book. IHRA and WDRA essentially say the same thing. I have them written down. I'm not going to bore everybody with reading all of them. That would be ridiculous. You can read them on your own if you want to. But the fact of the matter is, Kyle Cotrera had no opponent in the other lane. He was going to win that round. It didn't matter if he staged the car or not. It's irrelevant. And because of the broke car rule, he could have clearly got in the other car. The problem with this entire decision is the fact that Kyle Cotrera does a big burnout, breaks the car, assuming probably broke a crank or something. Otherwise, he would have staged it if it was just a rocker or something. So anyways, then all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, he comes back and is remaking the buy run in sixth round, the round right before the big split. And everybody tried to say in the aftermath and everything, well, it doesn't matter because Kyle was going to the other round no matter what, and he lost the round, so all is good. That's fine and dandy. Also, Kyle Cotrera was 001 red, so he was about to destroy that other guy if he just had sneezed or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Or if he had just spun just a little bit or something like that, he was about to be 000. The fact of the matter is, the issue is, why are we redoing a buy run? Why is he coming back and redoing a buy run? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, it blew my mind. I called you at like 11:30 at night. I'm like, right. I can't believe what's happening right now.
Right. And don't forget, I'm on the phone with my dad as well. And you're calling, and my dad's on the phone, and my kids are at a park, and they're having a really good time, and me trying to keep my eyes on them and keep my eyes on what's going on. So I remember saying to you, Casey, keep your eyes on this. But I've seen this before, and it kind of turned out the same exact way, where he jumped out of one car, jumped in another, and got a buy run. Okay. Now, if we're being honest here, and I'm gonna quote Kyle Riley. He overpaid in that moment after the fact, because the rule states if you don't stage under power, I don't care if you're in a buy run or not, you're done. The buy run was never initiated, so technically you shouldn't even be in the next round. Is that what you heard, Casey?
Say that again, because I was reading the
You're
chat.
good. I saw. So basically, if you break during a buy run, you're out if you can't stage under power. If that's your only entry, you're done. So the broke car rule is irrelevant. You're done. You didn't stage under power.
Right.
So in a sense,
well,
it's a guy going to the next round.
Yeah. Promoter
paying more money, or get him out of here and keep money in your pocket. So one way or the other, this particular decision had a double-edged impact. He got stuck on both ends of this one, basically. But it goes back to my main question: is there a gray area in the rule? Because it doesn't matter what NHRA does; it's all about the promoter. Does that gray area need to be shored up some?
I mean, the fact of the matter is the way that, because it was a buy run, and the way the SFG rule reads, which I'll read again because people are talking about it in the chat again.
Yeah.
I'll reiterate, the SFG rule for a broke car is the driver may change vehicles due to breakage while in competition with approval of the race director. Once the vehicle has entered the staging lanes for that round, a broke car change is not permitted. Not is in all caps, not permitted in that round for that entry. That already right there says we don't, first of all, we don't redo a buy run anyway. Second of all, that right there is saying you broke on the buy run. There's nobody in the other lane. I have no problem with Kyle Contreras being in the next round. My personal problem is the fact that now all of a sudden we're getting to redo the buy run. That's a fact. That's 100% a fact. Anyone who watched it saw it. You're redoing the buy run that you just broke on, and now we're going into the 7th round. Had we just said, my car's broke, I had the buy run, I was clearly going to go to the next round.
Yep.
Get in the other car. Your car's broke. Get in the other car. Come up for the next round. No problem.
Yep.
No problem. Yes, that is stretching the NHRA rules, but again, this is not an NHRA sanctioned race. The rules still apply as far as safety reasons go, but the rules are the rules for this race. And the way I'm reading the SFG rule book, if he is in that round, he breaks, we're stretching the rules, let him into the next round. He has no opponent. He could have just staged and would have been fine. I have no problem with him just going to the next round. I have an issue with redoing the buy run and making essentially a free time shot going into the big split round, which it was. So now all of a sudden we're splitting roughly $60,000 amongst 7 guys now.
Sure.
And now you just had a free time shot in a car you've never driven that day.
Sure.
Going into 7th round.
Let's pose this question too. It's from the Carnival Worldwide. He's saying being in staging lane and staging can be interpreted differently with a question mark. I believe it can, yeah, because staging it, you have to go to the beams. Being in the staging lanes, meaning you're coming up to the ready line, they're two different things. So maybe I'm looking at it differently here.
How did you get to the starting line?
Did
you go through the short chute?
No, you came through the staging lanes to get there. But you
entered the staging lanes.
You can be in the staging lanes, but if that car had a broke in the staging lanes, let's just go hypothetically. Before he passed that ready line.
It says right here, I'm looking at it. Once the vehicle has entered the staging lanes for the round, a broke car change is not permitted. That if you have a staging lane that's a mile long, if you have a staging lane a mile long and you leave the trailer and you back into the staging lanes, that's what it says it right here.
No, I got you. I got you.
All caps.
Yeah, no, I got you. And so I have to back up some, because this does say once you enter the staging lanes. It doesn't say nothing about passing the ready line. It don't say nothing about none of that. Once you enter the staging lanes, it's a wrap. That's all she wrote.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's a good question about the Carnival. I missed that part. You know what I mean? I wasn't really paying attention to that, because the only thing that I'm really keeping in my head here is that you can be in the staging lanes, but your car number not be entered into the computer yet because you haven't passed the ready line. Okay, but that's not the case. You enter the staging lanes with the car, and that car is going down the track. Is basically the case.
Yeah. Yeah, this is an interpretation of the rules. This is reading the words right off the paper.
Yeah,
I mean, it is what it
that's
is.
definitely reading it
So,
off the paper, but I still think there's gray area even in what we're reading right now. There's gray area here because one could try to interpret this differently. What are you considering the staging lanes? One could try. You know what I mean? That's just too gray. It's black and white, what I see, but it's still got some gray in it. Black and white
well,
make gray.
and either way, that's all irrelevant. The problem is redoing the Byron. Like I stated before, that's the problem. The problem is not any of this stuff because, in my opinion, none of this stuff applies. I think had the car broke and they just said the car broke, he had a buy run, he was going to the next round. And I don't think really anybody at that level complains. I think they're just like, okay, cool, put him in the other car. He's
Sure.
blind in that car as far like I want to say he might have won that car in a race for Westbury when he was racing for him at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like he's never driven the car before.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I saw him win, I think, Galat's Halloween race a couple years ago in that car. So he's driven the car before,
Mm-hmm.
but he hadn't driven it that day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anybody who's going to a race of this level is not concerned about that. They're like, dude, I've just won 7 rounds here. You haven't even driven that car today. You're going to have a lot of luck with you to be able to beat me anyway.
Yep.
So I think they put him in the next round, let him run a car he hadn't run that day, and he's got to figure out the box. He's got to figure out what the car's going to run. He's got to hold a bunch. He's got to do whatever. No
Yep.
one has a problem with that. The problem is letting him do the buy run. That's the redo.
Yep.
Redo the buy run, not do the buy run, redo the buy run.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely the problem here. No question about it. I'm going to look at Wesley Washington's post over here on Facebook. He's saying it's not about the money. I don't believe it's about the money either, Wesley. He says Kyle Riley apologized for making a bad decision afterwards. And that is a fact. I saw it with my own eyes. I can't remember whose post I was reading off of, but I want to say it was maybe someone out there in this kind of towards you in the Carolinas that follow SFG pretty solid. Maybe Kevin Pruitt or somebody of that magnitude. But definitely something I know, and hopefully everybody isn't taking the fact that this isn't a bashing event here. This is more of a how do we make this not happen again event. You know what I mean? And definitely, as everybody else is pointing out here, the buy run shouldn't have happened. That's a given. We definitely should have been in. I lost my train of thought here reading through some of these comments, but we definitely should have been in a little bit better position to make the right call here. And I think part of it could be being stretched so thin, which is another reason why I said maybe there's a time for a committee or let's see. How we come up with the right decision here. That way we've got a checks and the balances. So, Casey, what do you see over there? I got a lot of check going over here on Facebook.
I mean, kind of a lot of just people talking amongst themselves, giving their opinions as far as, what's right and wrong. But essentially, let's see, the Carnival Worldwide, Kyle got a test hit in the replacement car effectively. Yes, that's exactly my point. That's the overall issue. I think everybody, it looks like, is pretty much agreeing that if he would have been put into the following round with that car, no problems, nobody complains. I think it is. I was talking to TJ Pruitt about this earlier, and he said, some tracks you don't even have to go up for the buy run.
Right. And
I agree with that. I mean, yes, the rule book says this. That you got a stage for it. I've always kind of thought that's stupid. I don't really think you need to make the buy run. Most people just take the tree and drive back anyway. And that's why I don't have a problem with Coltrera winning the round, even though he broke and technically didn't take the tree. But I just don't think the buy run should have been redone. And I just think that's an insane decision. I don't know anyone who's been around any sort of drag racing. I don't know how you ever say that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's just crazy. But I mean, it is what it is. It's done. I would say in this scenario, it saved a lot more issues of the fact that Coltrera didn't win that next round. Sure. Because had he won that race, that would have been insane. Like they would have burned the tower down in that scenario.
Sure, and I think I've seen Brandon Michaels or someone come on here and say he respects the fact that people own up to their mistakes. So you make a mistake, you come on and you own up to it. And even in those exact terms, Casey, I seen Kyle Riley say, "Man, I made a mistake. Thank the Lord that he didn't win. He didn't win the next round because this could have been, but we'll treat it for exactly what it is, and I'm sure every other promoter who watched it and is watching GBR right now will treat it as such as well. Learning experiences. We definitely know what to do moving forward, and there'll be a lot more eyes under that microscope watching to make sure that it's done that way in the future. So hang in there, guys. We're going to take a quick break, as I just saw Corey Gliddy got locked out. Kevin Little just posted Corey Gliddy locked out in the first round of the dragster shootout. So we're wrong on one front, Casey. Hang in there, guys. We'll be right back.
Innovation never sleeps at Proform, and we're making our popular Black Race Series carburetors even better by adding new features that will set them apart from the competition. Some of the newest features include a newly designed main body with contoured Venturas for better airflow, and a new inside and outside two-step down leg boosters for increased atomization and better throttle response. Also, newly designed fuel bowls with increased internal baffling for better fuel control and a lower fuel ramp for reduced turbulence. There are also some new upgrades to point out. The fuel bowls now both include nitrofill floats, and the throttle base plate now has slabbed shafts for better airflow. These new features, combined with the fully adjustable high-flow main body with screw-in air bleeds, billet metering blocks, high-performance billet throttle base plate, and aluminum fuel bowls with sight glass windows, makes for a great street strip carburetor that packs a punch.
BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts are able to provide you with whatever you desire to enhance your drag racing operation. Items like safety belt magnets, nitrous bottle holders, and even quick release delay box mounts are able to be obtained from BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts. Have a look at top-selling items such as helmet hooks and steering wheel hooks, which are proven to make it easier to maneuver throughout your race car. You can contact BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts at telephone number 765-729-1177. All right. Welcome back. Going Bracket Racing episode 149. Hard to believe me and Casey have been doing this for 149 episodes, for crying out loud, but couldn't be possible without our good friends, our marketing partners, Ken Jones Performance. You got your Team 14 Motorsports, got Driven Racing Oil. Use that code GBR10, by the way. Crew Chief Pro Software. Get those dial-ins right, guys. It's just it's good to come off the trailer and have at least some understanding of what your car is potentially going to do based on weather. Proform Parts. I don't need to say much more about them except you can get anything you want. They probably got it. And TSR Racing Products for the transmission, anything you guys got going on, hit TSR up. They're very fast. They are bracket racers or class racers or 890 racers. They at least race as well as us. So hit them up and give them anything that you need. We appreciate you giving them your business there. BRG Motorsports 3D printed parts. Oh, Brian Garrett, he can make you up anything you want for that race car. I promise you that. Like Casey said, using the latest and greatest CAD technology and good high polymer, I think that's the right word, plastics. Anyway, 8th Mile Apparel, if you want to get you a nice shirt. You can't get you a Burleson construction hat. That one came straight from Donnie B himself. Good luck with that. Syntex Printing out there in Temple, Texas. And we got the boys at your ad here. Hit us up if you would like to become marketing partners with the Going Bracket Racing. Become part of the community. Maybe offer up a little bit of discount here and there as well. So, Casey, let's talk about it, man. Let's get into Spring Fling Vegas 24 edition. This is bound to be one of the marquee races of the year. And let's start off, Casey, with a car count. Let's just do it right off the rip. How many cars do you think are going to show up out there just right off the bat?
Man, I want to bring up something that I just learned around lunchtime, actually, before we talk about that, because this is going to help determine the overall car count for the million, in my opinion.
Got it.
So, did you know that, I mean, I knew this for like the Bristol race and stuff, but the 30s are only single entry. for this Vegas race. I didn't know that. I started reading to try to figure out what the entry fees were for everything. And on the flyer, it says, I in fact saved the flyer also. It says 30K race format, single entries only, car sharing is permitted. So it could go two ways, because you could have more racers in the 30s, because say me and you live down the street from each other and we're like, man, because I'm about the furthest away you can be from Vegas. It's 34 hours to get to Vegas for me. Best case scenario. You saw it on Troy Williams' post the other day when they were leaving Rockingham. So anyway, but me and you could jump in the truck and be like, hey, let's split the driving. So we'll both drive only like 18, 19 hours a piece or something like that if we don't stop. And then we'll just run the same car, and then we'll split fuel, all that stuff to make everything easier, split hotels, all that crap. So then you have one less car, right? So now I assume you can still split a car in the million race, but the million race you can double it. They're not going to let us put four entries on the Nova, you know?
Right.
So do you think that helps or hurts the overall million car count? Because it's going to help the 30s, I think.
Yeah, I think it hurts the car count, period. I do. I think that I think the more cars you have on the premises, the more racing you're going to get done, the more entries you're going to get. Nobody, you can come to the race and say, I want to race my buddy's car. And if one car goes down, you don't have another, or vice versa. So I think overall, the more cars you have on the premises, the better off the race is going to turn out, hypothetically, right? Because why is the Spring Fling boys doing this? They've experienced so much growth within their program that it's hard to even get through a buyback round or even give buybacks. So understandably, I get why Pete Biondo would go about, making a rule of such magnitude. The only thing that I question is out in Vegas. Now, Vegas is a truck for a lot of people. And I'm glad to see that there's still a race out there, but I feel like it's just going to be more traveled, with allowing the double entry to be relevant at this one, personally. But
being over in Vegas, see, you're on that west side. You're on the West Coast, where you get Team Mexico always comes. They usually bring 8 or 12 cars. You get Canadians that come. They usually bring 15, 20 cars. There's a lot of people over there that don't have the opportunity to race, like, for example, like I do. I didn't have to make a choice whether I was going to put mulch around my yard or race at Rockingham last weekend, because I was like, whatever, I'll just race this weekend. I could race 2 days this weekend if I wanted to. Last weekend I had the choice of, I could have gone to SFG, could have gone to Roxborough, could have gone to VMP, or could have gone to, I want to say, Coastal Plains. So, I mean, you got to think of it in their mindset of that side of the world. You could go to this race right now, but just take this shootout out of it, because it was a maximum car count of 32 cars. So everybody obviously doesn't have the option to run for the dragster. But you could run Friday, or you could run, what is today? Tuesday. You could run Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I believe Saturday. So that's 4 times you could race. Man, there's people in Canada that might not race 4 times a year. True. So if they can go to one place, being Vegas, they could take time off work, bring their whole family down. I'm sure it's still cold up there. Come down, come to the desert, take your wife out to a bunch of places to eat, see some shows, go racing for a week, and then go back home. And you've raced half of what you even have the opportunity to race for the entire year, just right there, which is why I think these multi-day races are so successful. But that's why I also think the Vegas race is always going to be successful, even though it is so far for all of our average racers that we typically see on TV.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. You know what I mean, Casey? It's an interesting format, in my opinion, or an interesting way of going about it. Seems like it would be a little bit more useful at Bristol, because we know for a fact Bristol is going to be overpacked. Okay, so
Yes.
that's kind of my take on that there. I got breaking news here. I'm sitting here reading some text messages out of CP Promotions, and it looks like hold on to your seats, guys, especially if you're within about 4 or 5 hours away from the track there at London Dragway. Update on the weekend. Looks like there's going to be two 15,000 off the top for 400, 600 to double. Okay, and then two 11,250 off the bottom, 300 enter, 500 to double. I don't know if there's weather going on or what here, but two 1,050 for the juniors, 500 guaranteed, no minimum. So
That's pretty cool.
that's pretty awesome. It turned into a weekend deal. I'm gonna guess there's probably some weather going in, but I wanted to get that out here. It's like I said, I just got that text message come through my phone. Man, I wish I was a little bit closer to be able to run for 15 grand 2 days in 2 days in a row. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The cool thing is that he made that if you double, that it's half price essentially for the next
Yeah.
entry to double. So that's
600 bucks.
always cool.
It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's
So
keep going on the fling, Casey.
yeah, we got a lot of people talking in the chat about this right now, saying there's people on both sides of the fence. People agree with you, people agree with me. More cars, more variety, and then we got I think single entry allows for more people to get there than otherwise wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
I can see it both ways. We're never going to know until the time comes. But the ultimate question is how many cars are going to be in the million? Because if double entries are allowed, like I said, if me and you team up in my Nova and we both want to run the million, they're not going to let us both double the Nova.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they're going to say, well, you guys can both single it, but we're not going to have 4 entries on one car.
On one car.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so what does that do? I think, again, best case scenario, it hurts the overall big race, but I think that it could potentially help the smaller races. I don't know, man. I think the biggest year was the year that Peeps won it, which was what, 450,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Was it a $500,000? I don't know.
Was that 2020?
I
don't know.
probably somewhere. Yeah,
somewhere
probably
in there. I feel
somewhere
like it was
around
right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was probably the biggest one. If it's not the biggest one, it's definitely the second biggest or so. I'd like to see him get to 395 because 395 pays $500,000. I don't know. It's hard to say. Hope if people are hitting the casino and doing pretty good, then maybe you'll see a little bit more. But then at the same time, man, it's always this always happens around election time.
Yep.
Around election time, everybody thinks the world's going to end the next election. So sometimes they spend a whole bunch of money right now. Sometimes they won't spend anything right now. So it all depends on how everyone feels. I know, the economy is not in the best of shape. It seems like it never is. But I think also a lot of people are starting to think you need to take the opportunity while you can, while you are able to do it, if you're able to do it right now. Because you never know what could happen. So,
yeah. So you're saying 395?
I want it to be 395, but I think my actual pick could probably be somewhere around probably 295.
Really? You're not even going to go north of 300?
I don't know, man. It's just really hard. It's really hard for me to think about it, especially it's so early in the year. We don't really have any sort of a gauge. This is kind of the gauge. This is kind of the temperature gauge of big money bracket racing because it's one of the first big money bracket races of the year. It always is every single year. The Spring Fling is always, as far as an organization, it's the most well attended because it's been around the longest. Peter Biondo and Kyle Seipel are very well known racers. Obviously, Kyle's not with us anymore, but Peter still is. He's making it bigger and bigger and bigger every single year. And I'm just shooting in the dark, man. I'm shooting in the dark. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope they get 495 cars, pay $1 million, what I hope. But I don't know. I mean, until we see this race, this is the race that we at GBR, you and I, typically use to learn how are we going to do our power rankings? How are we going to determine how many people are going to be at the Spring Fling Galot? Because that's always at the end of this month.
This is definitely
so we're shooting in the dark.
Definitely a benchmark. It always has been, especially between you and I. We watched this particular race, see how it is, see how its turnout is, and gives us a good idea of what's going to happen for the remainder of the year. And honestly, I feel like that goes for any promoter, you know. And so honestly, I'm just north of 300, probably around that 305 range. I don't see it going much higher than that. As a matter of fact, I think that's my maximum. Please, racers, everybody out there, prove me wrong with this one. I'd like to see it like Casey up around 500 if I could see it that high. That way we can watch $1 million get paid out. It's always fun to see somebody get that kind of life-changing money. You know what I mean? Especially doing it driving a drag car like what we do. You got something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you think if this race was at Bristol that it would pay $1 million? Not right now, obviously, but I'm just saying, like, the way that Bristol is attended, Bristol is the first Spring Fling race where they flat out had to say, we're not doing buybacks, we're doing single entry, like, because there's so many people that want to come. Whenever they open pre-entry for the race, the year that they said one entry only, they're like, it sold out in like 3 minutes. Do you think that if the $1 million was in Bristol, the way that everybody's participating, that it would pay the $1 million?
The easy answer is yes. The hard answer to the question is probably maybe. And I think it's all based on wallet depth. If we move that entry fee down about $250, I think we see $1 million get paid out in Bristol. There is no, in my opinion, it's just that area. The hard part about Bristol, do they have a curfew?
I think they might. And
so we just turned $1 million
Vegas race.
Right. We just turned this race into a marathon because if you host $1 million in Bristol, and especially let me rephrase that. If Pete Biondo and the Fling Boys host $1 million at Bristol, we already watched him pack that place to the brim enough to where he couldn't even have buybacks. So could they pay $1 million? Yeah, man, Bristol's yeah. I think just give a little bit of a tick down on that entry fee. I said $250. I think you could probably do it with about $150, but lowering that number just a little bit, yeah, you'll pay $1 million, no question about it.
Well,
in my opinion.
And the thing is, think about the risk of this big of a race. You know, think about the overall risk of paying that kind of money out. The best part about having it in Vegas is how unlucky would you have to be to get rained out in Vegas? You know, I know it happened in Pomona this year, but I mean,
no, they didn't get rained out. They got hailed out the building.
Yeah,
hailed.
So at Vegas, I assume there's no curfew because I've been by that place and it's in the middle of nowhere. The only thing that it's going to bother is the jets that are flying over, breaking the sound barrier,
anyway,
and all the aliens. You know, shoot. so I don't think they have anything to say about anything, but. Anytime you want to race in Vegas, as long as the track's open, you always can, because what's going to happen? The worst thing that could happen out there is high winds. True.
And we saw that last year. It was windy. I seen a lot of people mentioning last year's trip to Vegas. Everybody was driving there in parts of the motorhomes and trailers getting blown off. And I think I saw old Drag Temp talking about him having the wheel cocked so far to the left, his thumb was hurting the next day because he's basically driving to keep this doggone rig on the road, cocked to the left as hard as he could. Well, not as hard as he could, but at least enough to where it became uncomfortable. But definitely, I'm sorry if 150 is keeping you from entering the $1 million. You weren't going. That's a good point, right? That's a good point. So I probably shouldn't lower it, Michael Beard. 250 is probably a little bit better, but again, what would that make the entry? $1,750?
Yeah.
So where did I get that from?
Got me.
SFG and Kyle Riley. I believe his $1 million was $1,750 to enter it. And did he pay it? You doggone right he paid it. So if we taking a page off of how to pay $1 million successfully, it's already been done. It's already there.
True. But that being said, Galen Rollison and Britt Cummings charged $3,000 and capped it, and they paid it too.
That is a true statement. That is a true statement. What was their cap?
Well, it's not,
what? 300 and what? Was it
375
cap?
Or 375?
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. So
that's
I think
also
it's
true.
all about, it's just all about how you do it. It's not really about the money, because I agree with Michael Beard. The fact is that, if you're willing to spend $2,000 on one race, and several, if not the vast majority of these racers that are going to be at this race, doubles are allowed. There's going to be a lot of them double. They're going to be spending $4,000. If they have to buy back, those are $600 pop. They're not concerned about the entry fee. They're concerned about how many cars are in it. Do I think I can win? Because anybody who enters a race for that kind of money, there's a few people that might just have a ton of money and it doesn't matter, but there's not one person that would enter that race concerned about, they don't think that they can compete. Not to mention, third round win, you're already getting $1,000.
Yep.
So I mean, it's it's set back in such a way which a lot of these races are nowadays. You get to fourth round, if you can average it into fourth round every day, and a lot of these big money races that pay round money, you get your money back. So as long as you're above average racer, then you don't really have as much to risk as people think.
Yep. But anyway, answer your question. If we have it in Bristol, they'll pay $1 million. That's my opinion on that. So, this ought to be a really good race, to say the least, in my opinion. And, we talked about a little bit, Casey, before we get out of here, and I kind of want to bring this up too. It's definitely a destination race. Everybody has it on their bucket list. I mean, if you bracket race, this is something that you have on your bucket list. You know what I mean? Just to be the ability to be able to go. I've never been to Vegas, number one, but to go to Vegas and race and actually drag race at the same time and enjoy the strip and enjoy the casino and wherever else I want to do, that in itself would be worth the trip, in my opinion. So I feel like a lot of people may go out here it's a good location in Vegas because a lot of people are on vacation having a good time out there. So that would be pretty fun to go to. Looking at some Michael Beard comments here. He says if they actually get 495 entries and pay $1 million, that day loses 85,000 plus rental and all the extras. What are you trying to say, Michael Beard? They don't want to pay the $1 million?
He's trying to say that he knows how to do the math.
Yeah, but he sees it. The writing is on the wall for sure. It would be pretty cool to say I paid $1 million, but I don't care who you are. It ain't never gonna be cool to lose $85,000 plus probably $25,000 to rent the strip. So that's $100,000 lost right there. Good point, Michael Beard. Good point. Casey, man, what you got in closing?
Nothing, man. I'm excited to see who wins this pretty badass carbon dragster from American tonight.
Yeah.
Personally, I was talking to my buddy about this earlier. Personally, I don't like the choice of powder coating color, but the car itself is a nice car. And, if I won it, I wouldn't be complaining. It'd be the best looking color I've ever seen.
It'll grow on you is what you're saying. Nah, man, and definitely while we're here, man, I know one thing I got to shout out. I got to shout out over there to Dylan Champion. If you have not caught the latest vlog from Dylan Champion on Going Bracket Racing's YouTube channel, I would suggest go over there, take a look. Any feedback is always appreciative, but I think you're going to enjoy it, especially considering the amount of watches that I'm looking up behind the scenes here from GBR. So definitely good job with that one, DC, man. You did a great job on that vlog. Looking for more out of you. And heck, that's all I got for today. So you know what that means. I guess I will see you next Tuesday with another episode, 150th episode of Going Bracket Racing. Hang in there, guys. We'll see you in the staging lanes over on the Fling. I believe it's called Race the Fling's YouTube page. If you hadn't subscribed to that, get over there. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because you can't chat without it. We'll see you over there for some fun all night long and probably all weekend long too. Hang in there. See you later.